So David Justice has taken a lot of hits over his comments about Halle Berry, his first wife. Him and Halle were married from 93 to 97. And he was on the All the Smoke podcast with Matt Barnes. And he was saying that his idea of a traditional marriage was the wife cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids and all that stuff. And he just didn't see that in Halle. And people are just all over David Justice. It was like, well, who is he? Well, who he is was one of the best baseball players in the 90s. Played for the Atlanta Braves, has a World Series ring, 2 Silver Slugger Awards, 3-time All-Star, batted over 300 home runs, is in the Atlanta Braves Hall of Fame. That's who David Justice is. A simple Google search would have told you who he was. And at that point, most people, especially white folks, if they say, well, who's David Justice? They say, oh, he played for the Atlanta Braves. They didn't know Halle Berry at that point. Halle Berry was black famous when he probably first dated, because she was in Strictly Business with Tommy Davis, and she was the most stunning woman I've ever seen in my life when she popped up in Strictly Business. Just beautiful. And then she played the crackhead with Sam Jackson in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever, and then she followed that up with Eddie Murphy's Boomerang, one of the best Eddie Murphy movies ever. And she was in Boomerang. Not a lot of white people was on the Halle Berry train when they started dating, but in the middle of their marriage, like around 95, things started to change. She had the Queen miniseries, she was in the Flintstones, and she did Executive Decision. But she still wasn't that chick yet. Like, if we do the whole hierarchy of light-skinned actresses where one replaces the other, at that point, if we talk about the mid-90s, the top light-skinned chick in Hollywood that was getting the A-list scripts was Vanessa Williams. It wasn't Halle Berry. Halle Berry didn't become Halle Berry. It started around 99. She did the Dorothy Dandridge movie, and then she got Storm, the role of Storm in X-Men, which I still never bought her as Storm. Like, when you look at someone like Lupita, she kind of fits Storm, but that's years later. But Halle played Storm, and then she did Monsters Ball, and she won the Oscar, and then she got James Bond, Die and Never Day with Pierce Brosnan. The 2000s Halle Berry is totally different than the 1993 Halle Berry. Now, here's the thing, boys and girls. Once upon a time, us Gen Xer black men, we grew up watching our moms cooking and cleaning, taking care of the house. That's what we saw. And it wasn't just our moms. It was our grandmamas. It was our aunties. It was our cousins. We grew up watching black husbands and wives together, and moms, even if mom did work, she did everything. And it's like, I wish my mom was still around, because I would love to ask her, how are you able to just work and cook and clean and do all this stuff? Women today complain about cooking. You did everything. But for David Justice, that's the world that he grew up in. He saw his parents together, and he saw his mom doing all that stuff, and his grandmama, his aunties. Like, that's what his idea of marriage was. It wasn't old-fashioned. Black Gen Xers, white Gen Xers, Latinos, Asians, we saw our moms do everything and still be very loving. Not all this attitude, still be very loving, doing all this stuff. So, and plus he was 26 years old. Halle was 26, he was 26. She proposed. He didn't propose to her. I think he had a good time with them dating. I think he's like, man, this is a beautiful woman. I'm dating her. She's a starlet. Like, we're having a good time. Halle proposed to him. I don't think he was ready to get married. But no black man at that point was going to turn down Halle Berry. If Halle Berry, as any black man in 1993, you want to get married? It's like, hell yeah. There's probably any black man wouldn't have never turned down Halle Berry if she asked him to get married. But I don't know if she knew what she was getting into. I don't know if he knew what he was getting into. They were in love, and I think they felt like they was going to figure it out. But even back then, when I was watching them together after they got married, I was like, I'm not sure how this is going to work. Because she was always filming stuff. He's a baseball player, so he's on the road a lot. And that's a lot of stress on just regular marriages. Well, if he's on the road a lot during baseball, and she's all filming all the time, you don't spend a lot of time together. And contrary to belief, he didn't make her stop. See, the narrative now seems like that he was just this controlling guy. He never made her stop. I don't remember any time that he told her, I don't want you acting anymore. I want you by my side. This is not a Ted Turner. That's what happened with Ted Turner and Jane Fonda. Like, Jane Fonda, when she married Ted Turner, who owned the Braves at the time, she stopped acting. Jane actually stopped acting to be with Ted. But the thing is, she loves Ted. She still loves Ted. But she went back into acting and she being an activist and all that stuff. But yeah, when she was married to Ted, she didn't work, she didn't act. But that's different between Halle and David Justice. Halle worked all the time they were married. So let's not have this narrative that he stopped her from acting. Maybe they had a conversation about that. But she never stopped acting during this time period. So they get divorced. And then after that, a couple years later, she meets Eric Benet. Now the funny thing is, David got remarried in 2001, and he's been married for 24 years. And he has 3 kids. Now, those rumors while he was with Halle that he cheated. That was never substantiated. People say it's fact. It's all rumor. Did something maybe happen? Yeah. David just was a good-looking guy. Halle was always gone. And maybe something happened, but that was never substantiated. But he's been married for 24 years to the same woman. So for the people make it seem like he's this horrible guy, he learned some things from his first marriage. And he said he went through therapy too. So there's probably still a lot of stuff he had to learn when he got married the second time, but it's worked out for him. Right? So he got what he wanted from his second marriage. Halle then married Eric Benet in 2001, but it didn't last that long. Eric admitted that he cheated on her. And then also, there was a whole thing about, they said he had a sex addiction. I don't believe he had a sex addiction. But even with Eric, even though that marriage ended, he married Prince's ex-wife in 2011, and they also have like 2 kids, and they've been together since 2011. So then let's look at Halle. Now Halle's great. She blew up, Oscar winner, all this stuff. A-lister. But let's look at her relationships. She has not had any solid relationships until Van Hunt recently. And that's the past 3 or 4 years. Before then, she got with Gabriel Aubrey. She had a kid with him in 2008. And they had issues when it came to custody. Then she married Oliver Martinez. He was in that great film, Unfaithful, with Diane Lane. Fantastic film. She married him. They got divorced. There was some custody issues there. And for both men, now Eric, there's no alimony. For David, there's no alimony. For these guys, for Oliver Martinez, she has to pay him $8,000 a month for child support. And then I think she has to give him, if she makes a certain amount, she has to pay him 4.3%. It's like, wow. And I don't know what the amount is, but if she makes a certain amount, she has to pay him 4.3%, and he's getting $8,000 a month for child support. For Oliver Martinez, he's also getting $8,000 a month. He was getting $16,000 a month, but Halle's not working the way she did before, so now that's down to $8,000 a month. But when she makes more than $2 million a month, he gets 4.3% of that. Listen, I'm glad that David Justice said he went to therapy to kind of learn about relationships. And I think Halle Berry, I don't know what Halle Berry did, but I think Halle Berry probably needed to go to therapy too or something. Because I don't know if she's choosing the wrong men. I don't know if she loves the idea of marriage, but doesn't know how this thing works because she was so successful and so busy and all that stuff. And maybe she shouldn't have gotten married. I don't know. Beautiful woman, stunning, one of the most beautiful women ever. I love Halle Berry. But when it comes to relationships, either she chose wrong or she also, like David Justice early on, didn't know how this thing really works. Now, it seems like everything's working fine with Van Hunt. Everybody looks happy, but she's older now, right? Maybe it took her a while to figure things out. I don't know. So, David Justice is not the villain here. David Justice was just speaking his truth. That's why I hate that term so much. Because whenever women say, like, well, I'm just speaking my truth, it's almost like it's fact, it's solid. And people say, oh, yeah, speak your truth, girl. Speak your truth. Tell your truth, girl. When a guy speaks his truth, and he's just being honest about what his marriage was like with Halle Berry, he's just speaking his truth, and he's getting slammed for it. And he wasn't saying, like, she was a bad chick. He just saying, like, hey, man, like, she didn't cook, she didn't clean. And I don't know what type of mother she was going to be. And she didn't have kids until like 2008 and 2012. So maybe David was at a point where maybe he wanted to start a family, and maybe Halle wasn't at that point. And maybe they should have discussed this before Halle proposed and he said yes. That might have saved a lot of heartbreak. But he just, you know, they were young and they were in love. I'm sure all of you who are ripping David Justice, I'm sure all of you made all the right choices in your mid-20s. I'm sure every relationship you had in your mid-20s was fantastic. Everybody made the right decision. You chose the right guy. You chose the right girl. Everything was wonderful. Nobody makes the right decision unless you're really mature. Like everybody's like really mature in your mid-20s. We all made mistakes when it comes to relationships. Everybody makes mistakes. People in their 60s and 70s make mistakes. People when they're 15, 16 years old make mistakes. Relationships are hard. And you're taking a guy who's like one of the best baseball players in the world in 1993 to 97. You're taking a young rising actress in 93 and 97. And they're trying to make this relationship work. And she's off making films. And he's on the road doing baseball. And he has a traditional idea what marriage is. And she has a modern woman idea what marriage is. And they really didn't sit down and talk about this. In 1993, it's going to explode.